Here's a quick look into today's episode.
Is I really wanted a way for meme pages to change, because a lot of the ones that you see that are like unit related, it becomes like more bashing rather than showing the positives. And I came out here because I wanted to have a different experience where I came from last. It didn't really meet like what I felt the Army could be for me, and like what the experience I wanted to have. And I know a lot of other people had that same thing. So when I came here and I heard all the good stories, especially with leadership from team leader all the way up to the CG and even Lightning 7, I was like, this is a good place. It's in a good spot in the world, good unit, good training. And I feel like, especially on social media, like this generation of younger soldiers is more exposed to the things that we could post and that we could actually reach out to them and have that connection. I'm just trying to keep it positive and have a good environment for soldiers to like look at and be like, it's really not all that bad, because the grass really was green on the other side for me, especially here. I grew up in a military family. My father was in the Army. My brother is currently also in the Army. My uncle was in the Air Force. My grandpa was in the Army. Everybody down to World War II. My great-grandfather was killed in action in the Marines June 6, 1945 in Okinawa. So like hearing that story ever since I was a kid always inspired me, like knowing that it's the family business to join the Army. So far, I'd say the top experience that I've had is definitely jungle school. Probably on the page, people are tired of seeing the posts that I've had about it. I've been hitting that one hard after Sergeant Major Curry's announcement of the division formation, but that was like the first big school that I had gone to. That everybody joined for a purpose. Everybody's here for a reason. Everybody's got a why. So that experience of meeting all people from different walks of life, different nationalities, people who join the Army for their citizenship, people who join the Army to go to college, people who join the Army because they wanted to go fight in a war and serve their country. Like everybody's got an experience, everybody's got a story to tell, and hearing those stories. So meeting all these people is just, I don't know how else to describe it except I love that. I love the people. Like here, I noticed that a lot more people are staying in, but where I came from last, nobody wanted to stay. And I feel like it's not just the Army as a whole. I feel like it comes down to individual units and how they actually treat these soldiers and actually like value families, value training time, and they actually like value sending soldiers to like good schools, just giving them a purpose, because you join the Army for a purpose, and if you're not meeting that purpose, you don't want to be here. Giving them a good reason, keeping that morale high is definitely something that the Army should harp on more, which I feel like it's going in the right direction, but I feel like there's a lot of work to do, and like just trying to meet soldiers why. They always say like, don't judge the Army by your first contract, especially when it comes to like having bad leadership or just a bad experience. Like use this page to like show that like the 25th is actually like a good place to be. It's historic. It's the only place in the Army that is still at where it was founded. And that says a lot, because the 25th could always write another story, you know? So we are still here, and then one day we could go out there and then we actually take the fight to somebody and we'll be ready.
Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership. And not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people.
Hi, sir.
Let's go. Tropic Light Meme.
Hell yeah. How you doing?
How are you today?
I'm good. Just I got Army Navy on in the background. I'm pretty happy that we're up right now. So
yes,
yeah.
I've got it recorded, so don't give away all the scores to me, because I got it set outside, and I'm gonna watch the rest of it once we get done here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you'll be happy with what's going on. So
let's go.
I won't spoil it, but
yeah, I just got the photo of Ryan with Sec War. I mean, like, how does she in the whole stadium find him and get a photo?
I saw that when you sent me that. I was like, I saw all the cadets and I was like, oh, they look pretty sharp. And then I was like, is that Pete Hegseth?
Yeah. And I was joking with them they were driving up yesterday. Yeah. And I talked to them on the phone. And I was like, you let him know if you see him that I'm disappointed he didn't come out here for JPMRC for this last rotation. And he was like, yeah, Dad. Yeah, we're going to say that to him. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they won't.
That's funny.
Well, hey, man, thanks for doing this with me today.
Yeah.
You know, As the purpose of the Teach Me to Fish podcast was to help leaders better understand, what's driving people these days. Ultimately, it was
Mhm.
to help with the recruiting and retention challenges that the Army was going through a few years ago. It was a way through stories, through hearing people's stories, to share with leaders. This is why people are staying. This is why people are joining. This is why people are leaving. And when you said you were interested in doing this and you were willing to do this, and on behalf of so many people, a lot of people reach out to you and DM you at the memes page and say, like, these are the challenges, these are the things that I like, these are the things that I don't like. You got a amazing venue to kind of share some of that with us today. So I'm super thankful that you're willing to do this with me today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate, 'cause I know a lot of guys up there like you aren't too fond of the meme pages, but you've been one of our fans since like the start. And then our like code name for you and the admins was Mr. Morale. So we were like, we're pretty happy that we're like, did the commander of JP Marcy, is he really talking to us right now? And then, but yeah, no, I appreciate you for having me on and speaking for the other admins. So.
Yeah. And in order to kind of keep it that way, as like just like refer to you as like Tropic Light Meme, and this, can you just tell us a little bit about what you want people to think when they hear Tropic Light Meme, they hear about a memes page, like what is it that you hope people kind of say or think or feel?
So with that page, first it started when I was at my last duty station. I was about a PCS out here, and going into like what you're asking is, I really wanted a way for meme pages to change, because a lot of the ones that you see that are like unit related, it becomes like more bashing rather than showing the positives. And I came out here because I wanted to have a different experience. Where I came from last it didn't really meet like what I felt the Army could be for me and like what the experience I wanted to have. And I know a lot of other people had that same thing. So when I came here and I heard all the good stories, especially with leadership from team leader all the way up to the CG and even Lightning 7, I was like, this is a good place. It's in a good spot in the world, good unit, good training. And I feel like, especially on social media, like this generation of younger soldiers is more exposed to the things that we could post and that we could actually reach out to them and have that connection. So I feel like with this page, because I have experience with meme pages all the way back to 2022. It's not my only one, but this is my favorite one. And I'm just trying to keep it positive and have a good environment for soldiers to like look at and be like, it's really not all that bad, because the grass really was green on the other side for me, especially here.
Yeah. Wait, I remember when these kind of first started, and like the first one that kind of comes to mind is like the WTF moments. And it was like,
Yeah.
everybody was like, the last thing you wanted was your unit to find its way onto WTF moments for holding
Right.
everybody in formation, for somebody losing their nods, or someone gets a DUI, so everybody's in the parking lot for the next 48 hours or something like that. And
Right.
but what it kind of morphed into, not just that, but some of the memes, is it was just kind of a way to bash, the chain of command, or to kind of show like all the negative sides of whether it be the Army or, poor leadership decisions and memorandums on that people should have got a second set of eyes on before they published. Right. And in some cases it was just a little bit mean, it was like, and it seems like recently, at least for the last couple of years, it's like, it's cool to like the Army again, and it's cool to want to be good, and it's cool to like want to go to schools, and like I want to be a part of a good unit that does good things and do badass training. And that's cool again, because it was, for a moment, it was like, I remember when I remember when I was enlisted, and people would be like, "Oh, you're a lifer. You're gonna re-enlist. You're gonna and it was like you had to keep that as a secret. It's like it wasn't cool to like the Army, and I feel like in some cases it's cool again.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, so why or how did you kind of get started? And you can talk about like your other units, but like what made you kind of get started, and how did you get started?
Are you talking about just Tropic Light Meme itself,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah.
So with that, realized, like I said, I've got experience in meme pages for a few years. So I was like, I noticed the 25th doesn't have a page. Like they don't have a unit specific page. And then one of my friends, TLM2, he was already here. And I reached out to him. I was like, do you guys have a page? And he was like, no, we don't. And I'm sitting there at my last duty station. I was like, we should make one of these. And then that's kind of the name. I was like, well, the division's name is Tropic Lightning. And then I was like, play on words, Tropic Light Meme. Okay, I'll go with that. Created the username. This was when I was about 2 weeks from getting here, and I was just like, I'm gonna start Tropic Light Meme. I'm gonna have another admin, and then I'm gonna see if we can try to pull more. But then it kind of didn't really take off until I'm sure you remember JPMRC last year when we weren't actually Blue Force. So when the page actually started to get exposure was us kind of being on, he was op 4 and I was on another detail within the rotation. So we were kind of hearing all this stuff and we're like, oh, this unit over here, 121's doing this, 127's doing this, 227's over here, 235's doing all this. And I'm just like, we kind of have this connection going on and we can make posts about it. And then that time last year, we shot up from like 300, 400 followers to like 4,000. And then we were like, let's take photo submissions. Because I know a lot of people out here taking photos of all the cool stuff they're doing. And then as the photos started coming in, it was just posts of like 20 photos all in one post. Sometimes it wouldn't make it. Sometimes they weren't even appropriate to post, but I liked seeing them anyway. But then I was just like, we could turn this into like a weekly thing. And that's what started Almost Friday. And then JPMRC last year gave us like more meme ideas. And that's when like guys like you, like battalion commanders and battalion sergeant majors started being like, who are these guys and how do they, what's going on? So especially with the admin part, so it was only 2 admins, but we said there was 3 of them. So TLM1 was a real person, I swear. But in the beginning, he wasn't. He was not a real person. So what it started was we flipped the roles. So I started the page. I made myself 3. 2 stayed 2. And then TLM1, we were like, let's have a fake admin who's an officer, but he works up there. Like he knows everything that's going on. And like, that'd be really funny if we said that there's an officer that has the inside scoop on everything.
Somebody accused me of being TLM1. They said you're the officer giving them all the scoop.
No, that's actually pretty funny. Understandable. But yeah, that's how it happened. And then actually TLM1, he did, we picked him up after we made it a real person. And then we started realizing that he does know some things within the organization. So that's kind of how it picked up. And he was pretty good while he was here. So we enjoyed having him. So we have 2 admins right now and it's about to be just 1. So it sucks, but he's going to stick around for a little bit more and he's pretty busy. Couldn't make it here today. So just me speaking on everyone's behalf.
Yeah. I really appreciate it because, you know, as somebody, I've been in the Army my whole life, right? So like since I was 17 years old. And so the Army has been my whole life. And I appreciate how you guys are, you know, with a positive spin, being able to share what people are experiencing. You know, one of my favorite stories was that I always speak about at the beginning of these rotations with JPMRC, as I say, I want this to be the best exercise that anybody that ever participates in it has ever had. I want them to say, this is the best training exercise I've ever been a part of in my career, in my life. That I know it's a moonshot, but that's my goal. From the youngest private all the way up to the division commander. Like I want them to feel that, right? And what I saw last year was somebody posted and it said, I was 100% getting out of the Army before JPMRC exercise. And now because of it, they were on the Op 4. They said, because of this exercise, I am 100% staying in the Army. This is why I joined the Army. This is what I fought for. And it was a social media post. And I don't know who the person was. It was a young soldier, and And I was like, that's what we're shooting for. And if we can accomplish that for even one or two people, I think it makes a huge difference. And I think last year, from a morale perspective, last year was the first time that at least I've seen from a CTC perspective where, the soldiers were allowed to have their phones with them last year.
Mm-hmm.
And there was not any restrictions, right? At least people were smart enough to know when not to use them because they're going to get detected and such. But because of that, it seemed like the morale went through the roof of people getting videos, of them doing cool things, and people, taking squad pics and platoon pics and company pics. And I know that I got those pics up all over my office, and it motivates me. So, I appreciate what you guys have been doing.
Yeah, you coming up that phone rule, having the phones that indirectly created Tropic Light Meme. So
yeah, and it wasn't our rule, by the way. Like we're just we do whatever the division tells us they want to do, or we kind of enforce a little bit whatever the division decides to do. And I've seen both sides, right? I've seen you can't have your phones, and I've seen I've seen you have them. And I loved some of the posts from this last rotation where people are like, "Why are we not seeing any pics?" And they're like, "Well, we're not supposed to have our phone out here, so it's hard to kind of maintain that."
Yeah, this year was hard because I know before we actually went into the box, a lot of people were talking that the page isn't posting as much as like we did last year, but that's because we're actually the Blue Four. We're actually trying to do the fight here, but and like what you were saying, when it comes to JPMRC, you're trying to make it one of the best rotations in the Army. Like having done JPMRC, NTC, and JRTC, I can say JPMRC weather conditions not so much, but the actual value of it, I'd say, was up there because the first few days it starts slow, but then I think you remember that defense, that KTA and the captive. That whole thing made up for it because it was just absolute chaos, but it was fun chaos. And I had never seen that in a rotation like that. So it was pretty cool to be a part of that. So that one day kind of made it all worth it. That 2 days into the night and ended at 2 a.m. That was awesome. And just the rest of it, just being out there, bonding with your team, bonding with your squad and your whole platoon. It's a lot better than the other ones in the Army, from my experience personally. I don't know what anybody else has to say, but yeah, it definitely made me feel a little good about it. So
yeah,
and
that was not on purpose. The way that whole everything kind of ended on the final night. Obviously, you want the last night of a CTC to be a huge attack where you can, plant the flag with a huge victory or something like a culminating of moment where everybody can walk away pumped up, right? Is what you're trying to create. That we were not trying to create chaos, but what we were trying to create was, we want people to say that was the hardest thing I've ever been through, or the craziest thing I've ever been through, so that when they do go to combat, they say this was actually easier than the training. The typical, you sweat in training so you don't bleed in combat, right? And if we do have some form of war in the future that is large scale combat operations, it could be something like that. We don't want people to say they never saw anything like this before in their life.
Right.
And so the way it happened, I'm happy with the way that it ended. And it put that thought in people's mind of, man, if it's going to be that crazy, we got to come up with some control measures for how to control and understand who's who once we start getting intermingled with the enemy. Because there was people coming from all the directions, and it was,
there was,
there's a lot of lessons learned based on that last night. So, hey, the next couple things I want to do is I do want to hear from you, like why you joined and, kind of what you had hoped would be your experience in the first couple of years in the Army.
Okay. So, ever since I was a kid, I grew up in a military family. My father was in the Army. My brother is currently also in the Army. My uncle was in the Air Force. My grandpa was in the Army. Everybody down to World War II. My great grandfather was killed in action in the Marines, June 6, 1945 in Okinawa. So hearing that story ever since I was a kid always inspired me. Like knowing that it's the family business to join the Army, I was like, I can't just not do it. So as an athlete in high school, it's like I always had that team around me. I played football for 10 years. I always enjoyed being around like a close knit group of guys. So I always knew that somehow or some way I was going to join the military. Didn't know what branch yet, but I always had a feeling it would be the Army. But I decided to go the college route first out of high school. I did ROTC at a pretty good college in Ohio, and then that didn't work out. So I was just like, maybe I should just enlist, you know? So I ended up enlisting and been in the infantry for 6 years. And it's probably the best decision I've ever made to just enlist. And I really, really enjoy being around the dudes that I've been through and been with. And I've been to I've done a lot of cool things with these guys, and just that camaraderie. I knew I just wanted to have it, and now I have it. And I don't even think that one day I'd want to leave it behind. So that's why 6 years later, I can see myself staying in for as long as possible. But just the point of joining the Army, my earliest memory was I was still developing my brain. So I remember my earliest memory is 9/11. So that was something that always like resonated with me. I grew up pretty close to a large Air Force base. So on that day, I just remember hearing like fighter jets taking off. Like it was just sonic boom, sonic boom. And then years later, I finally asked, I was like probably like 13 or something. I asked my grandmother, who was actually at home with me, because my brother was born that day. So my parents were home, my grandma was there, and I asked her, and I was just like, do you remember like being at home with me when I was like really, really little, like still an infant, toddler? And she was just like, yeah, what about it? And I was like, the booms, remember that? And she was just like, oh yeah, those were all the fighter jets taking off to go defend DC and find Bush in the sky. And I was just like, wow, my earliest memory is September 11th, 2001. And I was just like, that kind of that early memory, and then being able to join at a young age was something that really resonated with me. And that's kind of just love for the country and just following the family business is really my why. So, yeah.
Yeah, you answered what would have been my second question was, are you even thinking about like serving for a little bit longer, long term, and you already started to dabble in that. What has been what are the best experiences like that you've had in the Army so far?
So far, I'd say the top experience that I've had is definitely jungle school. I had always wanted to go to that school, and I'll probably on the page, people are tired of seeing the posts that I've had about it. I've been hitting that one hard after Sergeant Major Curry's announcement of the division formation, but that was like the first big school that I had gone to, and I'm glad that it's finally like picking up traction. But that is something that I always wanted to do. That was like my biggest, probably a good memory for a while, just all that good curriculum, that training, especially here. I think more people should go to it. But I'd say second was just being in South Korea. The closest, obviously, that country's very, I don't know the right word for it. Disputed might be, but like being close to the DMZ, and then kind of like hearing like the propaganda coming from the north as you're like right there, you can see into like this no man's land, just at 2 miles of just open strip, seeing that and seeing like the split between the Western world and the Eastern world. And you're just like, we really do have it good here. And then having that ability to travel freely, especially in a military, and just being there in that presence and just knowing that you're there to defend democracy if that time were to ever come. And then third, I'd have to say probably just the dudes in the Army. These guys, everybody joined for a purpose. Everybody's here for a reason. Everybody's got a why. So that experience of meeting all people from different walks of life, different nationalities, people who join the Army for their citizenship, people who join the Army for go to college, people who join the Army because they wanted to go fight in a war and serve their country. Like everybody's got an experience, everybody's got a story to tell, and hearing those stories, you never hear the same one. So meeting all these people is just probably it's up there. don't know how else to describe it except, but I love that.
Yeah, I think it's
I
very
love the
common,
people.
like why you do it, especially
Yeah.
after a bunch of combat deployments, people would most commonly say like, what were you doing it for? And
Hmm.
after a few deployments, a lot of people started to get to the point of, I'm doing it for the people on my left and right.
Yeah.
Is to make sure that they come home and because if they're going to go back, then I want to go back with them, and I
Hmm.
want them to be be their teammate. And so, what are some of your goals for the next couple of years? Like, you told me personally, like, what are some of the things you're thinking about? But what are some of the things you hope to do over the next couple of years?
So I need to get my Ranger tab. That's a big thing because if I want to stay in, I need that. So I think I told you I'm going to CERT in January, and you're asking me on the phone the other day, like, what are you going to do with the page? And I was like, well, if I go to CERT and then Ranger School, it's gonna I have to figure that one out quick. But yeah, in 2 months, that's going to try to knock out that goal, finally get it done, do it within. It's been 6 years in the Army, my first time attempting it, and
So, from
feel
your
ready for it.
perspective, right? I know a lot of senior people talk about it, but from your
Yeah.
perspective, why is getting in Ranger School so important?
The answer for that, I'd say, I feel like it really sets you apart. Like I see all my friends like that have it, and they always talk about it, and then they always have that experience that nobody else has, and then they always come back with some sort of wisdom to share, whether it be like something that has to do with doctrine related or just staying awake. Like everybody's got something to share about it, so it's not it's just that experience that you learn outside of your unit. Like sometimes like here we go outside and we'll like take the dudes out, draw weapons, and we'll be like doing like squad attack in like the grass or something. But like out there you're learning it actually like in a simulated environment where you're tired, you're sleep deprived, you haven't eaten, and then you're just trying to lead under really like sucky circumstances. And then one dude that we have, he came back recently, and he was like, yeah, it's a leadership school. I was like, yeah, that's what they always say. He's like, yeah, but it's a leadership school to see how you can operate under environments that you're uncomfortable in. So people going there and not quitting and then actually sticking it through like 62 days, whether you go 62 and through or you go through several months of being there, like you actually went somewhere that other people don't want to go to. So you just signing up to go for it and then actually like doing all the work to get there, the physical, buying the packing list, preparing, staying physically fit, going through a pre-ranger, going through CERT, all of that. That actually shows that you're willing to go above and beyond what your requirement is as an infantryman to actually go learn that experience and come back more qualified than you already were.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because I was so young. I was only 19 when I went to
Yeah.
Ranger School, young private, and I was doing what I was told, right? They told me,
Hmm.
this is why you got to do this in order to be successful as an infantryman, you got to go to Ranger School. But one, it helps you become a better leader, it helps you understand, infantry tactics. But two, from a life perspective, for the rest of my life, I've always said if I made it through that, I can make it through anything.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds cliche, but like as a young soldier, like if you go through something that hard for the rest of your time, you can look back and say like, if I made it through that, I can kind of get through anything just about
Hmm.
that's out there.
Yeah. Like if you told me a year ago that I'd be running a marathon tomorrow and then going to CERT and then Ranger School a month later, I'd be like, you're crazy. I'm not doing any of that. But now I'm just like I'm starting to like believe myself that okay, maybe I can do this, maybe I can do that. And as these steps progress, I'm like, all right, got to do the marathon, got to go to CERT, got to go to Ranger, and then after that, what's next? So like I'm just trying to build those blocks. And like you said, like you can do anything.
Yeah.
So like you can do anything you set your mind to, and that's kind of like the good leaders that I had and the good experiences that I've had within this division have like elevated me to a point where I finally believe in myself, and then I can actually do these things that are hard that nobody else wants to do.
What was
So
some of the
that's
you said that you started to believe in yourself, right?
mhm.
And when was there a moment or was there a couple of things where that you saw some success in your career where you said, I'm starting to believe in myself? Do you
Mhm.
remember those moments or those things?
Yeah. So being an NCO, I always try to exceed the standards for my dudes. Like, just I mean, sometimes like there's some dudes that I've got that can actually like outrun me, outdo me in that aspect. So I was just like, I need to get better at running. My run time was always like, all right, 2 miles on the PT test, got to get that done, just whatever. And then now I'm just like, I run 10 miles, 14 miles. I'm getting up there all because the leaders that I had pushed me, and then they were doing it with us. And it was just like, I started doing 10 miles in my free time, build it up to 14 and all this stuff because running was my weakness. Like in the physical fitness aspect, I've always been a lifter. I always like to like, yeah, I can bench press 315 pounds. That's awesome. Like, oh yeah, I guess how much I just bench pressed today. I got up to 330, squatted this. Now I'm just like, I can do that and run far, run fast. So I I used to be a fat kid growing up, so running in sport was never my thing. But now it's like that was what always held me back was just my hate of running. I still hate running. Do not get me wrong,
You
but
sound like David
that
Goggins now.
yeah yeah, but not anywhere on that level, but definitely changing for the better when it came to running. So that was kind of like the gate that opened for me to realize that I can actually do this. Like I can actually, if I set my mind to it, I can be good at it. Because once I start doing something, I don't stop. Now I don't run all this every day like some people do, but being like, oh, we're going on a platoon run at squad run at 3-4 miles, that's gonna suck. Now we're just like doing 10 miles on a Monday. I'm just like, it's not that bad. I think I ran by you one morning. I was like, oh hey, good morning, sir. And you're on the phone. And I was like, oh, he's on the phone. Do I say good morning? I was like, oh, good morning, sir. And then I showed you my run time after. I was like, yeah, just knocked out 10 miles. And I was like, normally I wouldn't even do that, but
Yeah.
that's what changed it for me was just finally figuring out one little aspect of fitness that I needed to do.
Yeah, I like that. And the reason I wanted to ask you about that is I have seen that some soldiers, if they don't have an early success in the first couple of years in the military, it can be hard for them to get over it, especially if they have
Hmm.
a big failure. And some of those failures that immediately come to my mind is like soldiers that sign up with a RIP contract or a RASP contract and want to go to the Rangers. In the Navy, it's guys that sign up to go to the SEALs, or they sign up to go to X-ray or a 11X, and go special forces. And then they're not successful in the first 6 months, right?
Hmm.
But that's what they signed up for. And they might be young, so they have a hard time kind of making that I'll get over it and I'll keep pushing forward, right? They have a hard time without a small success. And I think those small successes could be like air assault school. It could be jungle school. It could be passing the soldier of the month board, and doing very well on the soldier month, going to the NCO board, becoming a sergeant. Like these are huge successes that all of a sudden become the tipping point for somebody to go, hey, I thought I was going to join, because this is my story. I signed up for 3 years college fund. That's it. That was why I joined, right? And then after I got through Ranger School, got my EIB, I'd been through airborne school, I was like, I actually like this. And then I passed the E5 board. I was like, I like this, and I might want to do this a little bit longer. So some successes like are the tipping points, I think, to wanting to serve a little bit longer.
Hmm. That's exactly right. All these successes build up, and then it kind of just opens that door. And when I had a platoon sergeant that always says, like, when you're hot, and when you're not, you're not. So building up these schools and these like promotions and going to the board and then doing something after that, you just got to say, what's next? What am I going to do? How am I going to take skills that I can learn elsewhere, bring it back to everybody else to inspire them and be like, we're going to do this today. I'm going to teach you guys the ropes for jungle school. I'm going to teach you guys things about air assault. I'm going to teach you guys some of the lanes for EIB. And then you just got to kind of just inspire everybody else. Because like if you inspire yourself, you can inspire so much more.
Yeah. I got 2 questions, and I did not prepare you for them, but I'm going to ask them anyway. And that's, what are your thoughts on like recruiting and retention, specifically in the area of, maybe people getting recruited to come into the Army that shouldn't have come in, right?
Hmm.
But we took them anyway, right?
Yeah.
And they're given to you as a sergeant. Or the people that are saying, I want to stay in the Army, and you're like, I don't think you should stay in the Army, or you're struggling in one of those two areas. And I'm trying not to lead you down on that, but
Good.
what are your thoughts on recruiting and retention?
So recruiting, the two-part question, the recruiting part is, I remember a few years ago, the Army had that recruiting crisis because I came from a brigade that did not have a very high retention rate. And those are the reasons that are above my pay grade that I have no clue as to why. But I do remember that they were starting to throw out all those E5s on recruiting orders. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
It was it was four guys from my platoon just came down on E5, like they're all E5s came down on recruiting orders out of nowhere. And I was like, is the Army's answer to recruiting crisis more recruiters? But then it was strange because these guys out of nowhere just been like, you have to be at Fort Knox on this day for recruiting school. And they're like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to go be a recruiter. I'd rather either want to get out or go be a drill or do something else, the broadening assignment. But then they started incentivizing, being like, okay, you become a recruiter, you're going to become E6 automatic, keep it by meeting your quota. And then I feel like in that way, I mean, it all starts with the recruiter. If you have a good recruiter that actually can like vouch for the Army in a highly and decent manner, I feel like that's going to go a longer way than put somebody out there that really doesn't want to do it. Like you just put them out there in like a really like small town in the Midwest and doesn't get anybody, and like population of like 50 people is the next town over. You're like, we're not getting anybody out here. But then you send someone to like Texas or California or Ohio, you're going to get a lot of numbers. But then if you put someone like North Dakota or South Dakota, they're going to be like, man, I do not like this. But with the retention part, I don't really understand that either, but I feel like it all comes down to the climate of your unit. Like here, I noticed that a lot more people are staying in, but where I came from last, nobody wanted to stay. And I feel like it's not just the Army as a whole. I feel like it comes down to individual units and how they actually treat these soldiers and actually like value families, value training time, and they actually like value sending soldiers to like things that like good schools and just giving them a purpose. Because it all comes down like you said, you join the Army for a purpose, and if you're not meeting that purpose, you don't want to be here. But then like having to remind them of why that purpose is, or like giving them a good reason, keeping that morale high, is definitely something that the Army should kind of harp on more, which I feel like it's going in the right direction, but I feel like there's a lot of work to do and like just trying to meet soldiers why. But that's a good question. I was not prepared for that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I've always thought about it.
I wanted to ask you because, you're right where the rubber meets the road. In my opinion,
Yeah.
The decisive point is the team leader and the squad leader, right? Because if you sign up for the Army, it doesn't matter how inspired and motivated you are. If your team leader and squad leader suck, it's going to make for a miserable first couple of years, right? I don't want to do this, right? On the flip side, if you just signed up for, in my case, for the college fund, and you got a good team leader and you got a good squad leader, they're going to make your dreams come true. They're going to help you find success, and they're going to make you successful, right? And they're going to make it fun, and they're going to make it, well, it's not always fun, right? Sometimes it's not fun, but they're going to train you, and they're going to get you right, and they're going to help mold you, and you're going to remember them for the rest of your life. So I think the decisive point for those soldiers is the team leader and squad leader.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask you.
Another part of that is I was actually about to get out of the Army in 2024. I actually was capstone complete in SFLTAP. I was already done. I had already figured out what I was going to do. I had already applied and taken all the testing for my home state's highway patrol. And I was like, good pay. It transfers over. That's something like, decent regimen going on of like waking up early, doing my job, have a purpose out there. But then it's like, as time got on and I was like about to leave, I was just like, I don't want to leave. I don't know what told me to do it, but it was just like my inner thought was just like, you can't leave this behind. You're still young. You joined for a reason. You need to go find that reason. And then I reenlisted for Hawaii, came out here, and I found good leadership because where I came from last, I had a platoon sergeant that literally nobody liked. And it was to the point where when he left, the whole platoon went out to a bar, like on that Friday night after he was going away. And then even the PL went out there. The PL went out with him and was like, thank God this guy's gone. But he was like the reason a lot of us were leaving. And I was just
What
like,
made him
well,
so bad?
he talked down a lot. He did not, he actually, he treated I want to say he treated the NCO tour like it was more of a fraternity rather than like trying to get soldiers to join, inspire them to actually become non-commissioned officers and want to lead and set a better example. But he was, he wasn't a very well-rounded person in general. Yeah, he had his tab, he was physically fit, but he just didn't have those personal skills that people would be like, I want to follow this guy into combat. I want to be like this guy. But then I came out here, had a platoon sergeant that I told him that I was going on this today, and he said he would listen. So I don't want to.
That's okay.
But yeah. So having that in a complete 180 was a lot better, because without this dude, I wouldn't be able to run the way I do. Wouldn't be taking better care of myself. Wouldn't feel better about the Army. And then everybody else in the platoon was like, we want to be like this guy. And then everybody else is starting to like pick up, want to go to schools. They want to, at like literally half my platoon is signed up for this marathon tomorrow because this guy like was sent us, he was like, we're doing a 10-mile platoon run. And we're like, oh, now we're just like 10-mile platoon run. We're like, let's go. But
That's
it
awesome.
it was a good change of leadership, and I definitely needed that. And I feel like a lot of people need to realize that the grass might actually be greener on the other side. They always say like, don't judge the Army by your first contract, especially when it comes to like having bad leadership or just a bad experience. Like, you know, you don't do a lot where you come from. If like you're in 3 Corps or something, you're like, man, I don't like dealing with these vehicles. But then it's like, maybe I want to go try light infantry. Maybe I want to go to Hawaii, where like you're gonna be out there light infantry in the jungle, have a whole different experience than coming from like a place like Colorado or Texas. And it's just, you can build your experiences as you go. And that leadership really, really comes down to making or breaking good soldiers and good NCOs.
Yeah.
So I think that also goes into the retention thing you were talking about, is just having good leaders surround you and just building you up from somebody that like, you don't think you're at a point, but they're going to get you to that point. And when you're at that point, it's now your turn to start doing the same thing in return.
Yeah. When I was at the War College, I started this podcast as part of the, the recruiting and retention challenges, right? And my findings were that one of the greatest impact to recruiting and retention is better leadership. And someone said to me, LeClaire, there's no way that the answer can just simply be better leadership. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, well, then you're precisely the problem. That is the decisive point at every one of at one of the levels. Now, when we say better leadership, right, that could be the easy button, right? But better leadership, what is it about that guy that you want to be like him? What are the things that he's doing that says we want to be like that person? What are some of the things that that person's doing?
I'd say just from like a person like that is just like, you hear their experiences and like you just look at them. It's like they got these badges, they got these tabs, they got all these deployments, but like they're not letting that part define them. Like you could have all this stuff that you could wear, you've done this, and that, but if you're not actually like getting down to these soldiers and actually communicating with them, letting them know who you are, letting them know that like you can do it too, and then like actually giving them a sense of, I wouldn't say the word belonging, but if you make them feel like they can actually belong in the Army and then they can do X, Y, and Z to become like them, then that goes miles and miles above what anything else could do.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to put your finger on, but you know it when you see it, and it's like, it's easier to kind of define the bad leaders, right? It's easier to say, these are the bad things, don't do those things. And then when you see it, you're like, I see it coming from a mile away. You're like, that's a good leader. I want to be like that person. I had those NCOs growing up. I had those officers growing up in the Army that I wanted to be like, and now it's a combination of don't do those things to be like the bad ones. Do more like the things that you're seeing from the good ones. And then what I would also say is like, the people on your left and right, the ones that bring the best out of you, how do you be more like them? What are they doing that's bringing the best out of you and trusting you?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We already kind of dabbled on some of like the recent exercises and what it's like. You talked about what it's like being in the 25th Infantry Division and some of the great leaders that we have out here, but like, is there something that makes it so special? Why is it that it's so different out here, besides the fact that it's paradise and the weather's, not relatively nice all year. We don't have to take 3 or 4 months off because it's freezing outside. You can train outside every day pretty much, even when it's raining. What is it about, some of these recent exercises? What is it like out here and why?
I'd say definitely the culture that's being built. It's, you look at like dudes like Sergeant Major Curry, and they're always like trying to find new ways to improve their division. And I remember he talked about on a podcast recently that he was on. He was talking about how he got here. There was no H2F. They didn't know how to combat against drones. They didn't know how to do all these things. And like these leaders came together and they're like, let's take the 25th and let's start changing it towards the next fight. Because he said the other day, he's like, what's 1 year from now? January 1st, 2027. He didn't mention anything else other than that. It was kind of cryptic, but if you follow the news and you follow world tensions and strife, you kind of have an idea of what he was talking about. The 25th is the westernmost element that is closest to that enemy, and then we need to be ready if the time comes to actually support and defend the Constitution of the United States against that enemy, because we have enemies in the world that are actually trying to build themselves up to be like us. They want to be like the United States, and they studied the years and years where we actually kind of like learned, we succeeded and we failed, but then they're taking all the things that we succeeded and that we failed, and then they are doing that times 10. So then we have to stay up there. We have to be ready. And I noticed that here it's actually like the training has flipped, rather than just be like, you go out there, you know what's going on. You see a squad of 4 dudes sitting up there on a hilltop, go up there, conduct battle drill, take them out. Now it's just like, okay, how are you going to combat against a drone swarm in the jungle? And there's a whole platoon headed your way from the other side. And you're like, well, this is new. But especially the 25th itself, I feel like the way especially 2nd and 3rd Brigade are changing, that they're kind of operating around this whole idea of like, it's coming and we need to be ready. Because your job as an infantryman isn't to be, this goes for everybody, your job isn't to have already done it. Your job is to be ready. So the 25th is doing a really good job of getting a lot of people ready, especially when it comes to fighting in a jungle environment. And Sergeant Major Curry talked about how he likes to talk about that incline skills trainer that he always, the thing down at 3rd Bat, the Punisher. And he was like, there's a way for us to start preparing for this environment. And then if you look outside of this island, the other islands and the other areas of the Pacific have similar terrain. We all know what a gulch is. And like he said, it's a mountain going downwards. So everybody has to be fit and ready to fight in that environment. And if the time comes, I feel like the 25th has actually that advantage, because we've done so much to actually get people ready. So other than that, I feel like the 25th is doing a really good job of trying to prepare soldiers physically and mentally. And like, even on my end, just trying to like use this page to like show that like the 25th is actually like a good place to be. It's historic. It's the only place in the Army that is still at where it was founded. And that says a lot, because the 25th could always write another story, you know? Yeah. So we are still here. And then one day we could go out there and then we actually take the fight to somebody and we'll be ready.
Yeah, man, that's very well said. You know, so many people can learn from like based on the things that you've been talking about for the last, 30 minutes. The way I want to kind of land this plane with you today is like, you now have like, we've been talking about it, but is there any advice that you have for some of maybe the soldiers that are going to listen, simply because, because you're with Tropic Light Meme, but then you got some
Mhm.
senior leaders that are listening to what you have to say, because they truly care what's driving people these days, and what some of your teammates are saying and sharing with you, and you're speaking on
Mhm.
behalf of all of them, So like, do you have anything that you haven't already kind of covered, the advice, for some of those younger soldiers out there? We'll start with that group.
Advice for younger soldiers. That's a good question. Ask for help when you need it. Because, being ready doesn't exactly mean being ready to fight in a combat scenario. Like, I have never been in combat, and no one's ever going to be ready for the day that it comes. And they always tell us, like, you got to be ready. But if you're not taking care of yourself financially and spiritually and with just everything else personally, you're not going to be able to be ready to do your best. Like, if you're going home every day and you are in a bad place at home, and then like you're just not asking for like the resources the army has available to you, then you're just not going to feel okay about yourself or like your job, or like you're not going to care about the people around you. So if you have an issue, because I remember when I was younger in the army, I had a huge pay problem. So it was, for a few months, the DFAS didn't pay me. And then I was just like, well, I can go here. I can just go to the finance office, talk to them about all this stuff. And then it got to a point where I actually had to ask for help. And as soon as I asked for help, it got to a point where I had all these good leaders helping me. They were taking me to the finance office. They were sitting down with me, like, are you okay financially? Are you okay when it comes to paying bills? Are you okay trying to, like, maybe if they overpaid you, underpaid you, are you ready for that? And I feel like soldiers need to ask for help when it comes to, like, don't be embarrassed to actually seek advice from other people, because you never know when they might have gone through the same thing. So when it comes to like finance issues, all set on that, because I had good leaders that were like, "What's going on, man? Like, you look a little stressed." And I told them, and then they helped me immediately. And I think that asking people for help is definitely something that the younger dudes need to learn how to do. And another thing, I feel like, just being inspired, like I said, just kind of looking at other people, finding the right people you want to follow. But it's definitely a huge thing. If you just find that one person to have a mentor, just try to be like them, try to like follow what they do. How'd they get to the point where they're at? Maybe you can do the same thing. So I feel like a lot of people just need to like ask for help when needed, find a mentor, and just be grateful to be alive every day, because you never know, one day that you're not going to see your family. You're going to be gone for a few months. You might have to be out there for few weeks out there in the jungle doing JPMRC, and you just got to be grateful for those things you're going to come back to. Like, I tell myself now every day that I never thought I'd be running a marathon tomorrow, but it's like, I'm going to do it while I still have the ability to do it. I'm going to still do it while I'm still young and have all this ability to do the things that like I set goals for as a kid, and now I can finally do it as an adult. So I feel like a lot of people just, if you're taking care of yourself spiritually, financially, morally, and physically, it's going to go a long way for you. So yeah, I feel like a lot of dudes need to hear that.
Thanks for that, brother. And the last one is, advice for people like maybe like me, or other battalion commanders and CSMs that are out there, and what I ask you to, the advice for them, you can go in any direction, but it's also dabble on the advice for those people that say things along the lines of, I don't do social media. That stuff's not good. I don't care about that. I don't care what they say out there.
Yeah.
I don't care what everybody's saying, any advice for some of those senior folks that have been around for a little while?
Yeah, I think definitely just trying to understand every soldier at the lowest level is like going back to Sergeant Major Curry. I mean, I don't mean to talk too much about the guy, but we're huge fans of him for a good reason. And I think it was your podcast where he had that quote of, he always said he has that picture where he's smiling that he loves, and he's on that wall. He's on everybody's wall. Everyone's like, that's Division Sergeant Major, but he's like, get off the wall, spend 5 minutes with these soldiers. That 5 minutes is going to go a long way. And I feel like a lot of people can follow in that, because if you spend 5 minutes just having a conversation with somebody in a good way, they're going to see you as not just an NCO. They're not going to see you as a senior NCO, a commissioned officer, field grade, all the stuff. They're just going to see you as like, this is somebody that I can go to for advice. This is somebody that I can have as a role model. And this is somebody that actually genuinely cares. Because that 5 minutes, like you said, is going to make them like trust you in that 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes one day in combat could go a long way. So I feel like just getting off the wall, as Sergeant Major Curry says, just do that, and I feel like it'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, hey, brother. Well, I we thought this would be like a quick 30 to 45 minutes, and we've been talking for over an hour. And I want to say thank you, not only for what you're doing right now on this episode, but what you've been doing for the soldiers out there, what you've been doing during the exercise, what you're doing for the 25th Infantry Division, what you're doing for the Army, what you're doing for everybody, from not just from the memes page, but obviously what you're also doing for the soldiers that are that are inside your platoon. The other 10 people that you're going to be inspiring, out there doing the Honolulu Marathon tomorrow. So I want to say thank you. This is just kind of the start. I'll be there for you, not just from this podcast, not just with social media, but like, from a Colonel LeClaire perspective, you can count on me to kind of help you, along the way, and the people that you're serving with along the way. Good luck on the marathon tomorrow. And I just want to say, thanks for doing this with me here today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time. Like I said, a lot of leaders don't like listening to meme pages, but I feel like this might be the first time that a full-bird colonel has ever had a meme page admin on a podcast. So that's a huge thing. I'm sure a lot of the dudes are gonna like to see that. So yeah, and also we'll do more sticker drops, and I think I need to give you one of the other ones that we have, but yeah, we're gonna try to plan that more and try to get more soldier stickers. So we're almost at 10,000 followers, which is pretty cool. So we're going to figure out some more stuff to do.
All right, dude, let's spread the word. Let's spread the gospel.
You're right, sir.
Well, thanks, brother. Good luck resting up the rest of the day. Good luck on the marathon tomorrow. Look forward to seeing some pics of you guys with your trophies or your medals on the finish line.
Yeah, goal's the finish line. I'm not going for time. The goal is just to finish it.
Yeah. Just like life. The goal is to finish. The goal is to finish. We're not training for time. We're training for life.
Exactly.
All right, brother. Have a great rest of your day.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Strike hard.
Strike hard.
Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts, and better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes, and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.